A sealed envelope, slipped across a long mahogany table in Buckingham's inner council chamber, would become the single most explosive moment of the modern monarchy. Just 1 minute ago, the king's trembling hand signed a document that didn't just alter tradition, it shattered it. As whispers ricochet through royal corridors, one truth can no longer be hidden. Catherine is now Queen Regent, and Camilla has been quietly overthrown. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. For days there had been murmurs, restlessness behind velvet doors, an eerie stillness among staff, and a suspicious silence from Clarence's house. But no one was prepared for what happened next. The order wasn't announced through trumpets or royal decree, it came as a quiet signature on parchment that would turn the entire monarchy on its head. Prepared in secret under the watch of only the most trusted aides, the document declaring Catherine as Queen Regent was finalized behind layers of protection, beyond the eyes of the press, and far from Camilla's grasp. Royal insiders later revealed that this wasn't a sudden decision, it had been calculated, debated, and, in some cases, fiercely opposed. And yet, it was done with such precision that even the palace's own communications team had no idea what was unfolding until the ink had dried. This wasn't merely a symbolic nod to Catherine's growing influence. It was a strategic coup, one orchestrated in the shadows of power. The meeting itself was untelevised. Only a select few members of the Privy Council were allowed entry. Security was tightened, cell phones confiscated, silence enforced. And when Charles appeared, his demeanor was heavy yet determined. He barely spoke except when asked if he fully understood the consequences. His answer was chilling in its clarity. Let history remember this choice. Those present described the moment as suffocating in intensity. No murmurs, no applause, just the weight of history hanging in the air as his pen slid across the page. Camilla, meanwhile, was nowhere near the palace. In what sources now call a deliberate move, she had not been informed of the meeting, her presence explicitly excluded. Whether this was for her own protection or to prevent any disruption remains unclear. What is clear is that she had no idea until it was too late. Royal advisors had long warned that such an act would trigger a constitutional earthquake, one that could splinter the monarchy's public image. And yet, the king moved forward, unmoved by the warnings, unshaken by the magnitude of his decision. It was not just a personal choice, it was a statement, one that declared Catherine not only worthy but essential to the future of the crown. In just 1 minute, centuries of royal hierarchy were rewritten. The queen consort, once seen as unshakable, was now eclipsed, and Catherine, often underestimated, was now elevated above every expectation. This was no accident. This was war waged not with swords but signatures. The ink of a monarch, the silence of his court, and the weight of destiny had chosen their Queen Regent. But to understand why the crown pivoted so sharply, why Catherine, not Camilla, now holds the regency, we must peel back the layers of betrayal, power plays, and quiet loyalty that built to this reckoning. While the world watched Camilla's quiet ascension with uneasy acceptance, inside palace walls, a storm brewed. Her hold on ceremonial duties tightened, but so did the whispers behind closed doors. Catherine's growing popularity became Camilla's private obsession, and what began as icy tolerance soon spiraled into an invisible war for power, respect, and legacy. Camilla had, for a time, kept the crown's surface calm, embracing public duties with what appeared to be poise and gratitude. But behind the scenes, she was drawing hard lines, consolidating influence across patronages and quietly reassigning allies of Catherine from influential royal households. Every move was cloaked in protocol, every shift disguised as administrative necessity. Yet it was clear to those paying attention, Catherine was being isolated. Not overtly, not loudly, but deliberately. It was death by 1,000 silken cuts. And for those who had once admired the unity between royal women, the shift was chilling. Reports from palace aides began to trickle out of meetings where Camilla's name dominated the agenda, and Catherine's role was downplayed or omitted altogether. Within this atmosphere of soft exclusion, friction intensified. State engagements became frosty affairs. Observers noted the unmistakable tension between William and Camilla, a tension that no smile or wave could erase. Their interactions, once civil, were reduced to brief exchanges marked by clipped tones and cold glances. William, protective of his wife and fiercely loyal, began to distance himself. Meanwhile, Catherine made no public complaints. She bore the chill with quiet elegance, refusing to retaliate or fuel speculation. And that silence, measured, regal, unflinching, only amplified her strength in the eyes of those within the firm. Inside the palace, loyalties began to shift. Princess Anne, once seen as strictly neutral, reportedly began to express admiration for Our Catherine's grace under fire. Sophie Wessex, whose own journey in the monarchy had not been without scars, found herself aligning more closely with the Princess of Wales. A quiet solidarity was forming, not through declarations but through glances, gestures and behind-the-scenes coordination. Staff members noticed, advisors noticed. Even Charles began to notice, and with each passing week Camilla's isolation deepened, not from the public, but from the system she believed she controlled. Camilla's growing paranoia manifested in her gatekeeping. Access to the king was more tightly filtered. Events were curated with increasing scrutiny. Those who had long served the institution began to whisper of a monarchy being twisted into a personal fiefdom. Yet even as her grip tightened, it was clear that control was slipping. And in contrast, Catherine's quiet power only grew stronger. She didn't need to command the room. She was the room. Every gesture she made, every silence she held, became a declaration of quiet authority. The monarchy was no longer watching two queens coexist. It was witnessing a slow, inevitable transition. As resentment simmered under Camilla's polished public image, the king began to notice something even more unsettling. His inner circle was slowly fracturing, and loyalty was migrating. They tried to hide it. A late-night hospital visit. A flurry of handwritten notes. King Charles's illness was never meant to go public, but it was in those vulnerable moments that he saw who truly stood beside him. Catherine wasn't just present, she led. And in those nights of weakness, Charles saw the queen in waiting he never thought he'd need so soon. It began with whisper. A late cancellation of a scheduled appearance. A vague palace statement citing fatigue. But behind the palace walls, the truth was far more unsettling. Charles had suffered a health scare that jolted the monarchy into quiet chaos. Senior aides were summoned after midnight. Confidential briefings were held in hushed tones. Medical staff moved in and out of the palace through side entrances. It was supposed to remain a secret, but in a family built on image, it was the one thing they couldn't control. What emerged from those nights, however, was not just a medical emergency. It was a reckoning. Camilla, the queen consort, had been noticeably absent from key briefings and was reportedly unreachable for critical hours. And while Charles lay in silence, hooked to monitors and cocooned in uncertainty, it was Catherine, poised, calm, unshaken, who stepped into the void. She didn't ask for authority, she claimed it through action. Coordinating briefings with physicians, speaking directly with the Lord Chamberlain, reassuring palace staff with steady resolve. Not once did she falter. It was said by insiders that the entire weight of the monarchy shifted quietly onto her shoulders that week. Even seasoned courtiers, hardened by years of royal crises, began to refer to her as the true North in the fog. And while Camilla was still the official consort, her absence in that pivotal moment spoke louder than any decree. The optics within the firm were changing. Perception was turning into allegiance. William's voice cracked with emotion when he approached his father's bedside. According to those present, he whispered, "Look who leads when no one watches." It wasn't just a statement of a demeration. It was a warning that the monarchy could not afford a figurehead but needed a force. And Catherine had become just that. Princess Anne, ever the realist, reportedly echoed William's sentiment later in a private conversation, stating bluntly, "Only one woman held the crown while you lay still." There was no longer room for ambiguity. The future had revealed itself during the king's weakest hour, and Charles, ever the traditionalist, began to rethink everything. In the days that followed, once his health had stabilized, he quietly summoned a constitutional advisor. Discussions began not about abdication, but about contingency. Emergency protocols were redrafted, and for the first time, Catherine's name was placed at the top of that list. Not Camilla's, not out of disrespect, but out of undeniable reality. She had proven her mettle not through speeches, but through unwavering service in silence. The decision wasn't born from favoritism, it was born from survival. The monarchy, fragile and fading in public trust, needed a heartbeat the people could believe in. But Catherine's strength came with a price, and soon, the quiet war with Camilla turned into open defiance. When Camilla discovered the draft naming Catherine as regent, she didn't weep, she exploded. A source inside Clarence's house claimed the Queen consort demanded a reversal, hurling decades of loyalty back at the king's feet. But what she didn't know was that her ultimatum would become her undoing. The confrontation was neither planned nor diplomatic, it was raw, emotional, a breaking point. Camilla stormed into the private royal suite with the unsigned draft trembling in her hand. Her voice, once so carefully measured in public, cracked with fury. She demanded the document be destroyed immediately, calling it a betrayal of their pact, of everything they had built together since the darkest days of Diana's legacy. The Queen consort, once steady in her quiet control, now stood unrecognizable, unraveled by a fear she hadn't felt in years. She accused Charles of succumbing to manipulation, naming William and Anne as the culprits. "They've cornered you," she spat. "They've turned you against your own wife." Those close to the scene say Charles stood frozen, unable to offer a single word of defense. For all his authority in that moment, he was a man torn between a crown's demand and a woman's desperation. It wasn't just the betrayal of a spouse. Camilla saw it as an erasure of her very identity. After years clawing her way to legitimacy through scandal and public scorn, she now found herself being quietly replaced, not through exile, but by royal ink. That night, she reportedly threatened to withdraw from all future royal engagements unless the decision was reversed. And though Charles didn't answer her directly, his silence echoed louder than any decree. The next morning, whispers flooded the palace. Staff had overheard Camilla weeping in her private chambers, repeating a single line through choked sobs, "I won't be made irrelevant, not again." But her tears didn't sway the tide. If anything, they deepened the divide. The king, now retreating into quiet reflection, held a private discussion with Princess Anne just hours later. According to palace insiders, his words were hauntingly simple: "She forced my hand." It wasn't anger, it was resignation. The monarchy, in his eye, could no longer afford emotional volatility masquerading as entitlement. Camilla had miscalculated. Her confrontation, intended to intimidate, had only cemented the urgency of Charles's decision. The crown needed clarity, not conflict, legacy, not rivalry. And Catherine, for all her quiet demeanor, had never once raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her strength had already reshaped the palace. But while Camilla battled to preserve her influence, another storm was breaking this time, among the royal courtiers tasked with upholding the monarchy's future. Inside the marble corridors of the palace, loyalty was shifting like sand. Camilla's aides found themselves sidelined. Catherine's former staff, once relegated to lesser roles, were suddenly summoned to private meetings. The monarchy wasn't just choosing a regent, it was realigning its soul. The transformation was silent, but seismic. Senior aides who once pledged unwavering allegiance to Camilla began submitting sudden requests for reassignment. No dramatic exits, just quiet withdrawals. Some cited health reasons, others family obligations, but all shared a common truth: they were abandoning a sinking ship. Behind the gilded doors of the royal administration, whispers turned into strategy. People who had once tiptoed around the Queen consort's temper were now rallying behind a new kind of leadership, one built on respect, not fear. And at the center of that momentum was Catherine, her former private secretary. Long pushed aside after a restructuring allegedly initiated by Camilla, was quietly recalled to Windsor. His expertise was no longer considered unnecessary. It was now vital. Then came the leak. A screenshot, innocuous in appearance, devastating in impact. A palace group chat. One sentence. 5 words. She's the queen we deserve. It wasn't just gossip, it was rebellion. The message spread like wildfire through the corridors of power, fueling a movement that had already taken root. No names were named, but everyone knew who she was. It wasn't Camilla. At the same time, Princess Anne was already moving with the precision of a general. She summoned an informal gathering of senior royals, no press, no announcements, just quiet strategy. The meeting, held under the guise of a routine luncheon, quickly shifted into something far more significant. The goal wasn't ceremonial. It was structural. Anne made it clear, we must secure the next generation. The message landed with thunderous silence. Those in attendance knew it wasn't just a comment, it was a mission. Support for Catherine gained even more momentum when Prince Edward and Sophie, usually measured and reserved, broke tradition. In a rare joint statement, they offered unwavering support for Catherine's leadership, subtly rebuking the chaos unfolding around Camilla's faction. It was a move no one expected and one that sent shockwaves through the press offices. The shift had become undeniable. The firm was speaking with its feet and with its future. Most damning of all was what happened behind closed doors. The Internal Strategy Committee, the invisible hand that shapes royal direction, met without Camilla's knowledge. For the first time in her tenure as Queen Consort, she was not invited, not consulted, not informed. The message was deafening. Her presence was no longer essential. The palace wasn't waiting for the crown to change hands. It had already begun its transition. But the tipping point came not from politics, but from history itself. A hidden clause, long buried, now emerged to cast judgment on the present. It was buried deep within a sealed appendix to the Queen's final advisory notes, meant only to be opened in the event of a crisis. When King Charles read the line, he reportedly went silent for over 20 minutes. Her words were clear: should the throne require a regent, I name Catherine. Camilla's name wasn't even mentioned. No one expected such a clause to exist, let alone one so direct. It had been drafted not long before Queen Elizabeth's health declined, placed among the most confidential succession materials, and locked within the royal archives under high-level clearance. But fate and fracture had forced the monarchy into precisely the crisis the Queen had feared. It was Princess Anne, ever the dutiful steward of her mother's legacy, who uncovered it during a quiet review of contingency files weeks earlier. She didn't make noise. She didn't summon alarm. Instead, she brought it directly to her brother the king. And in that moment, Charles was forced to reckon with a truth even he hadn't anticipated. His mother had foreseen the turbulence. She had known what might come, and she had made her choice long before anyone else dared to. Royal constitutional lawyers pored over the document to verify its authenticity. There were no ambiguities, no clauses that could be twisted in Camilla's favor. The wording was resolute. It had the full legal weight of the sovereign's prerogative. There was no room for reinterpretation and no time for denial. Camilla's exclusion from the clause was just a slight, it was a declaration, one that now stood in contrast to her growing desperation and her increasingly unstable grip on the crown. And when Charles handed the document to William, the future king reportedly went pale. For a man trained from birth to expect scrutiny and pressure, the words still cut deep. She saw it all, he murmured to Anne. She saw this coming. Charles, still grappling with the confrontation from Camilla and the uprising within his own household, made no statement that night. But to close advisors, he whispered something that would later become prophetic. Mother always saw further than we did. It wasn't just acknowledgement, it was surrender. He had been trying to navigate a storm blindfolded, but now the compass had been passed to him by the one person whose vision he trusted more than his own. The Queen's wishes were clear. The future belonged not to sentiment, but to structure. And Catherine, through quiet resilience and unwavering discipline, had become the vessel of that structure. Camilla, in one final act of defiance, attempted to challenge the clause's relevance. Her private counsel questioned its enforceability, suggesting that the sovereign's death rendered such declarations obsolete. But the royal legal team shut it down instantly. The clause had been drafted under the sovereign's seal. It was binding. Her efforts weren't just dismissed, they were buried. From that point on, no one in the palace entertained her claims. The doors began to close. The legacy of Queen Elizabeth had spoken, and so, backed by history, by family, and by fate itself, King Charles took the pen and made the unthinkable official. The lights were dimmed. Security was doubled. Only 6 people stood in the king's private study when the document was signed. A single signature split the monarchy in two and named Catherine, once mocked as a commoner, the de facto queen in a world still reeling from the truth. The setting was stripped of ceremony, no cameras, no aids, no gilded illusions. Just the weight of legacy and the trembling hand of a monarch at a crossroads. Charles sat in silence as the final draft of the Regency decree was placed before him. Around him stood only those the crown could trust: William, Anne, Edward, and 2 senior members of the Privy Council. It wasn't a council of celebration, it was one of consequence. Charles reportedly stared at the page for several minutes before uttering the words that would haunt every corridor of the palace: "This is the burden of the crown." His voice cracked. His eyes stayed fixed. The gravity of centuries pressed down on a single moment, and in that pause, time itself held its breath. He then requested that the room be cleared. Not even William remained. The king signed the decree alone. No one witnessed the final moment of ink meeting parchment. That part of history belonged to him and him alone. But the second the seal was affixed, the monarchy changed. The signature wasn't just royal, it was revolutionary. When the others returned, there were no cheers, no toasts, only quiet nods and a shared understanding that nothing would ever be the same again. Within minutes, Princess Anne reached for a secure line. Catherine answered, and with a calm voice that belied the tectonic shift beneath her feet, she listened as Anne relayed the king's decision. There were no screams of triumph, no dramatic gasps, only silence, followed by a measured response. "Then we begin." In that moment, the transition began not in public, but in purpose. Camilla, meanwhile, remained in the dark, not out of malice, but because the truth had outrun her influence. 40 minutes later, as the news broke through a press leak, her world unraveled. The corridors that once bent to her presence now echoed with absence. The press statement confirmed what she feared most. She had been bypassed not only by power, but by the monarchy itself. But the signing was only the beginning. The fallout would prove even more devastating. Camilla vanished. For 48 hours, she was untraceable even by palace security. When she returned, it was not to a throne, but to silence. Meanwhile, Catherine, elevated but heartbroken, stepped into a role she never sought, bearing the crown's weight with grace, fear, and steel. The monarchy held its breath in those 2 days. The Queen Consort, once omnipresent and immovable, had simply disappeared. Royal aides scrambled. No formal statements were issued. The gates of Ray Mill House remained shut. Sources inside the palace revealed Camilla had refused all contact even with the king. Her absence was not a retreat, it was a protest, a wound, a reckoning. She was no longer the power beside the throne, she was a woman sidelined by fate, eclipsed by the very institution she once believed she had conquered. While her allies tried to assess the damage, the public moved forward without her. Social media detonated in a storm. #Queen Regent trended across the globe. Editorials praised the king's foresight, while others questioned the monarchy's long-term stability. But the face the world wanted to see was not Charles's, it was Catherine's, and she delivered, but not with words. Her first act as Queen Regent was neither political nor ceremonial, it was deeply personal, a quiet, unannounced visit to a children's hospice. No press, no photographers, just her presence, a gesture that resonated louder than any public address. In that single act, she established a new kind of monarchy, one not built on grandeur, but on grounded strength. She was not alone. William walked beside her, his hand always within reach. Princess Anne stood on the other side, her expression firm, her loyalty unquestioned. Together, they formed a wall of resolve, a new trinity that symbolized a monarchy in transition. With every step they took, they made it clear this was no temporary arrangement. This was the beginning of a new royal order. King Charles, facing a storm of public emotion and internal fracture, finally addressed the nation. His voice, measured and heavy, carried a single message. This was not a dethronement, it was a safeguard. The line sent ripples across media channels. It framed the regency not as betrayal, but protection, an act of duty, not disloyalty. But even that reassurance couldn't mend what had broken behind palace doors. Camilla's return was quiet. She entered through the east wing at night, avoiding staff and skipping all scheduled appearances. Insiders say she barely spoke to Charles upon arrival. The Queen Consort had become a ghost in her own kingdom, watched but not welcomed, present but no longer prevailing. And within the private spaces of the family, tensions festered. Old wounds reopened. Harry, reportedly watching from afar, made discreet efforts to reach out. Whether it was for reconciliation or retribution, no one could say. But one thing was certain, this story was far from over. Yet even in the aftermath, one chilling question now lingers in every royal hall, every public square, and every global headline. The crown is intact, but its unity is not. With Charles weakened, Camilla disgraced, and Catherine ruling in all but name, has the monarchy been saved or broken? As future battles loom over succession, loyalty and legacy, one thing is certain: the regency is not the end. It is merely the beginning of a storm far greater than anyone anticipated. Within CE walls, whispers now swirl with one word: abdication. Though no formal announcement has been made, the pressure mounting around King Charles is undeniable. His health, his fractured household, and the weight of his own decision have carved deep lines across his legacy. Some believe the regency decree was only step one, and that the ultimate handover to William and Catherine is now inevitable. Others argue Charles will hold on, if only to prevent the appearance of collapse. But while speculation consumes the press, inside the monarchy, a far more dangerous tension has begun to rise. The question no one dares ask aloud has already formed in the minds of those closest to power: what happens when the regency ends? Will Catherine step back, or has her quiet reign become a new standard the monarchy cannot afford to lose? The very idea of reverting to the old guard, of reinstating Camilla in any meaningful way, has sparked unrest, not only among staff, but among the public. Her absence from major engagements has been a relief to many, and her return, if it comes, will be met with scrutiny sharper than ever before. Meanwhile, a silent battle has begun to take shape over the future of the next generation. George, already being groomed with the subtle reverence of a young monarch in waiting, now finds himself symbolically elevated, while Camilla's grandchildren remain in the background. There are murmurs of resentment from extended branches of the family, whose proximity to the crown has suddenly dimmed. Allies of Camilla, though silent for now, are said to be preparing a strategy not to reclaim the throne, but to protect the legacy she fears slipping through her fingers. Beyond the Ace, the public has made its verdict clear. Polls and headlines praise Catherine as the Queen of the people. Crowds swell wherever she appears. Her speeches, her presence, even her silences resonate with a public desperate for stability wrapped in grace. And yet, behind her calm demeanor lies a woman carrying the weight of a nation's fractured trust. She has not claimed victory, because she knows this isn't over. This was not a coronation, it was a reckoning. Camilla has been seen only once since her retreat. Her expression, cold and unreadable, revealed nothing. But according to insiders, she is not finished. A final move is coming, crafted not out of strategy, but desperation. And when it lands, it will either cement the monarchy's fragile future or rip apart what little unity remains. As the crown trembles beneath the weight of power, betrayal, and prophecy, one woman now stands at the center of it all, and history has already begun to write her name in bold. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.